In the midst of dark Rome, a name like a curse, Pietro Caruso. He takes power and leads more than 300 souls into darkness. This is more than just a crime, it's a city's journey to reclaim justice. Early in the cold morning of captured Rome, Pietro Caruso stepped out of the mist into his power. Amid the roar of army chariots, he knew Rome was about to demand more from its ruthless hands. Caruso marched down the stone corridors, his control growing more and more terrifyingly familiar with each step. In the dark room, the pages of Caruso's files opened like a door leading Rome into darkness. Each line he wrote added to the stranglehold on the lives of a city that could no longer cry out. In the dusty courtyard of war, Caruso hands over his dossier to the Gestapo, pledging to side with violence in exchange for his power. After the explosion of the resistance, Caruso stood among the ashes, searching for justification for punishment. That night, Rome burned not only with fire, but with the anger of its people. Dawn misted the prison yard and fear lined up before Caruso. He did not need to shout. His cold presence was enough to make them understand their fate was sealed before the sun rose. Before the cold list table, Caruso signed each name with cruel silence. 335 people were crossed out like extra words. He did not hesitate for a breath. At the misty entrance of the Ardeatine tunnel, Caruso watched the prisoners enter as the door closed forever. The darkness was his last witness. He knew they had reached the point of no return. The muddy path to the quarry was the final journey for the chained men. Caruso walked beside them, silent, but that silence was his sentence upon their fate. As each group of prisoners was pushed into the dark mouth of the pit, the space seemed to swallow all sound. Caruso stood at the boundary between light and darkness and let the other people sink into the bottomless, cold blackness. Inside the cellar, his breathing echoed off the stone like a final plea. The guards stood still, and Caruso watched, letting their fear echo and die away. The guns were raised. The sound of loading rang like a fateful bell. The bullets exploded, the sound melting into the stone, carrying the last breath among the cold mud and gunpowder smoke. The firing squad continued, the rhythm deadly and emotionless. In the fog and gunpowder, Caruso stood still, as if he had lost the ability to distinguish between people and lists to be deleted. As the rocks were poured down, sealing the vault, the truth and the soul were buried. Caruso watched the dust rise, as if he were covering up the traces of an unspeakable crime. In the Roman square, as the list of dead was announced, grief erupted more loudly than any gunshot. Caruso quietly retreated into the shadows, knowing his name would soon stand beside the crime. At the military tribunal, Caruso's silence could not conceal his crime. The accusations from the people pierced him, forcing him to face the shadow he had created. The night he fled, familiar streets became strange, as Rome rejected him. Even as he plunged into darkness, the city pursued him, demanding back what he had stolen. In the ruins, Caruso hid as if he knew what was coming. The cold moonlight clearly showed the figure who had reached the end of the road. When the guerrillas stormed in, he was dragged into the light like sin from the darkness. Without power, Caruso appeared for what he was, a man paying for bloodshed. In the jeep through the morning mist, Caruso sat bound like a prisoner held by Rome. The road before him was not a way out, but a path to his own doom. In the white light of the courtroom, Caruso's crimes had nowhere to hide. The testimony rang out like a hammer blow, shattering the shell of power he had worn. As the death sentence was read, the air seemed to stand still. Caruso heard each word fall, heavy as the stones that had once sealed the entrance to the vault where he had buried others. At the Forte Bravetta execution ground, Caruso stood before the stake, facing the souls he had once cast into darkness. The cold wind reminded him that justice would eventually come. As the shots rang out, Rome closed its darkest chapter. Caruso fell silently, and with him, the power built on blood collapsed.